All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, welcome to Weekend Appointment. Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions, joined by Mark Virginis. Mark.
Very good, very good.
I know I was going to nail it sooner or later. Hey, I know you've got to give your little disclaimer. You just heard mine, so shoot.
Great, thanks. I'm Mark Virginis. I'm an investment advisor representative offering securities through Financial Network Investment Corporation. That's my broker-dealer. Member SIPC, Mirrors Financial Partners, and Financial Network are not affiliated. And if folks need to give me a call or get in touch with me, they can reach me at 717-509-4521, or they can find me on the web at Mirrors, and that's M as a Mark, IRUS, Mirrors Financial Partners, and Partners is plural.com.
And Mark, people that were with us in the first hour but probably might not are hearing this hour, so I'm going to kind of repeat or rehash a little bit of what we were talking about because I think it's so important. We were talking about quantitative easing and the idea of basically jump-starting inflation intentionally to start moving money around. And can you explain that for me?
Yeah, I mean, once you have money in motion, inflation, you have money at work, meaning banks are lending, people are refinancing mortgages, cashing out on the refi, being able to go buy stuff at Best Buy and Costco and Macy's and so forth. You need the consumer to come back so the economy begins to grow. If you put more money in the hands of individuals and individuals are doing something with it, then businesses, of course, need to give you products and services for you to buy. Therefore, they hopefully will start to hire. Hence, that starts to snowball down the hill, or I should say up the hill, to hopefully increase the growth of the economy. As opposed to growing at 2%, which it did last quarter, they want to grow at more like 3.5%, 4%, which, is a good wish. I mean, you look at someone like China, which we talked about also in the first hour. China is growing at 10, 11% per quarter, and they're trying to slow it down and get it around 8 or 9%. They're on fire over there. But that's basically the reason of quantitative easing, is trying to flood the system with more cash, trying to get folks to start getting off the sidelines, businesses off the sidelines, and doing something with it.
And, and this, I guess maybe this is my problem with it. I don't trust, I don't trust them to nail it right. And the danger is if they don't do enough, I guess you just end up with a little bit of printed money out there, maybe a little bit of inflation, but no real change in the economy. But if they hit it wrong and inflation spikes too high, it would seem to me that that's going to then cause them to have to raise interest rates, which is going to put us back in a position of having high inflation for some period of time, as well as rising interest rates.
Yeah, very well said. I mean, that's why the Fed has said we'll do $600 billion by second quarter of next year. So they're going to start to do this in pieces, and they're going to do this very slowly, methodically, and make sure what happens doesn't light the as I tell my clients, they don't want to light the fire of inflation. Think
right.
of a big bonfire, a big, Texas A&M type bonfire, the big one. Well, they don't just lay logs on there and they light that on fire. They start with some kind of kindling, sticks, whatever, and then they build it up, and then of course they throw like these big, massive telephone poles on top of this huge, massive bonfire. Well, right now, I think with QE2,
right,
the Fed is beginning to strike the match to light that bonfire, and it's gonna take everyone around that bonfire to make sure. All the fire trucks need to be there, fire extinguishers need to be there. So if inflation rears its head and quickly and fast, the Fed's going to have to react, and they're going to have to employ some more tools.
And I understand the concept that they're saying this will force people to start moving their money around, but that also warps the decisions people make. So I assume For instance, you talked in the other hour about the idea that bonds are going to take a hit.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
yeah, bonds are,
so people are going to want to move out of bonds. And but bonds serve an important function in the economy, don't they?
Yes, they do. I mean, for a lot of folks, especially in retirement years, or folks look at bonds as a safe haven. They look at them as they use the word "quote unquote" guarantee. And so, for a lot of folks who are on income producing, in retirement years or what have you, for lifestyle or for just getting by, they're used to getting X dollars per month. Well, those X dollars are going to now fall. You're going to see the income from those bonds start to go south.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to see it right away, but you will start to see it, and you're going to start to feel it. And what the Fed's hoping is it'll get some money off the sidelines from companies, because companies are keeping a ton of cash on the sidelines as well. They're hoping the companies go out and do mergers, acquisitions, hire more people, open different plants, what have you. But for folks, too, they're not hoping we pull our money out of bonds as much as, and this is one comment I heard recently, is this just someone was talking how this is another Wall Street, I don't want to say Wall Street bailout, but another Wall Street help from the government, where if I'm not making anything in bonds, okay, I have to go into stocks, maybe dividend-paying stocks or something like that. Isn't that helping the Wall Street firms yet again? Aren't you basically telling us we got to put our money in stocks? So who makes money? Wall Street. So therefore, isn't this the government helping Wall Street all over again?
And theoretically, Wall Street's the one who's going to help facilitate the sale of my bonds and make a commission, and then sell me into the stocks and make a commission.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, and bonds are also something that are important for companies and other people to raise capital rather than having to issue shares, which means they dilute their ownership. Mm-hmm. So this would seem to also encourage, companies to issue stock and move away from debt financing. But that creates a whole set of costs and issues for the companies in terms of giving up, some control, diluting other people's shares, the whole nine yards.
Yeah, I'm interested to see from the investment banking world if you start to see within first, second quarter of like a lot of school districts who were on the fence of maybe floating bonds to do, a little renovation to the school, or maybe they want to do an artificial turf field, or maybe they want to do a refinancing of their existing debt. I wonder if you're going to have a run to the finish line here before things look a lot different. And schools are going to say, well, boy, if we do this now, the interest rate we get is this. If we wait till next year, third quarter next year, my goodness, the interest rate might be a lot higher. Therefore, we can save the taxpayers money by doing this project now versus later. Because right now, everyone's been holding off on doing their major projects, namely because you have debt service. You have to pay those bonds. You have to pay off that debt, and that usually means raising taxes. And nobody wants to raise taxes now.
Right.
But with this QE2, I'm just bringing this up for discussion. That's I'm going to actually call one of my investment banking friends this week and say, is this going to force the hand? Is this going to push people to do projects that may otherwise would have maybe waited a year or two?
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to hear his answer on that one.
And
because investment bankers make a lot of money when they do deals. They
right.
make a lot of money.
I know. I've seen a few of the. I saw a lawyer one time who did these deals, and while the rest of us rode up to New York in a bus, he took his firm's limo.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes the work they do. I mean, they may work on a deal for 2-3 years before it comes to fruition and got paid nothing. But just like at settlement, there's a check that's cut to that investment banking firm that put those, put the deal together. Did all the necessary forms to the state, to the Fed, took it to market, found the buyer. I mean, everybody gets, I'm not begrudging them for making money. Everybody deserves to get paid for what they do. But, sometimes at the end of the day, it's just the enormity of that dollar.
Right.
That is just like, wow. But
well, I guess what I'm I don't know. I don't know what all this means exactly. But let me turn focus for a minute, and obviously, if anybody wants to call and talk to us about quantitative easing, we'll take their phone call. But what does this mean practically for me? I mean, and honestly, just anybody who's saying, okay, what should I be doing as an individual at this point? Because we've just kind of talking about the broad stroke.
Yeah, well, not knowing, and I'll say this because you never know how many years from now people are going to listen to this podcast, but from this angle, you should be looking at your portfolio and, of course, assess your risk tolerance, what you can stomach, what your time horizon is, tax implications, in case it's a taxable portfolio, what have you. You should be looking at reallocating that portfolio. You should be looking at having a little bit more exposure if you have a small exposure, but a little bit more of exposure to commodities. So commodities are going to benefit from this. If I'm going to continue to artificially suppress my dollar, then oil is going to do very well. Get used to $3.25 a gallon for gasoline when you go to the pump. That's going to be here to stay for a while. In fact, oil had one of the biggest weeks. It was up almost 3% in a week this past week. You're going to want to look to have some gold or natural resources in general within the portfolio. Now, again, there comes the question, do you buy flat-out gold bullion or do you buy it through an ETF or a mutual fund? Different strokes for different folks. I personally, for my clients, buy through mutual funds because I buy the people who are getting it out of the ground, because if folks are going to buy it because they think it's going to go up, like the Glenn Beck people of the world that think it's going to go up, well, you need to mine it. You need to go find it.
Right.
And so I play it from that angle because I think that's less volatile than the actual strike price of gold bullion.
I also got to imagine, if you actually buy, if I buy some gold and it's got to get shipped to me, I got to pay insurance on the shipping, and then I've got to store it, and then there's cost of as I build up my little stockpile and security and insurance and I'm probably better off just to own a piece of paper that says I have some gold in a warehouse somewhere, right?
Yeah, to each his own on that. Really, you got to run the numbers and see what makes sense for the individual. There are self-directed IRAs where you, not with a broker, but you yourself can have an IRA. There's a company called Pensco Trust, and for a fee, they'll let you have a independent, self-directed IRA. Self-directed meaning you're calling the shots. With that type of product, they'll give you the literature, but you can hold gold in an IRA. You can hold real estate in an IRA and so forth. You just can't do that with me. I mean, I could do it through a mutual fund or an ETF, but I can't do that through, physical gold like that. So if you're going to buy the bullion like you were talking, you're going to need to run the numbers yourself because I don't think any advisors or brokers are going to get involved in that.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. And I think, Lee, there's a big advertiser on WHP. I think it's Lear Capital or Lear something. They do a ton of gold like that.
And what else did I want to ask you about this quantitative easing and the personal finance, that sort of thing? I guess what you're saying is, well, I guess there's some good news that comes out of it, too. If inflation goes up, then theoretically it gets easier to pay my mortgage back, right?
Should, yes. Yes.
And
also, let me go ahead.
So, but if I'm in one of these adjustable rates, I guess they can whack me with a higher interest rate eventually if they need to make that back up.
Yeah, there's going to be a rude awakening call. I mean, if you're like in the second year of one of them adjustable rate mortgages and you're staring down the barrel of year 5 or year 6 where that rate readjusts, granted that bank's going to make up for lost time. And
so at least from the standpoint of people who've borrowed a lot of money, my understanding is inflation can be helpful to them to help them pay it back. But doesn't that also hurt the lenders at the end, too, because they're actually getting less money back or less return on their investment?
Of that particular investment, yes. But remember, they're constantly making more loans, and they're constantly selling off those loans. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to have any real hurt to the earnings of a company because, again, as much as they took out loans or they gave mortgages in 01, 02, 03, 04, they're still going to be doing them in 2011, 2012, and so forth. So they're just probably going to accelerate the process, and that's kind of what the Fed wants to do. They want people to start borrowing money. They want banks to start lending. They're just going to speed up the process. But hey, there was one thing that came across my wire I wanted to share with you too, because I know you have a lot of clients who ask you about long-term care insurance or life insurance or what have you. Moody's just recently downgraded John Hancock on long-term care insurance because Hancock has appealed to all 50 states for a rate increase to existing long-term care insurance premiums.
Okay.
So folks, especially prior to 2004, some of the older policies that were priced probably weren't priced correctly, and now Hancock is being forced to have a rate increase, and it may be substantial. The story I saw in Investment News, which is a public publication, people can get their hands on it, was talking like 40% rate increase, which is going to be a real shocker to a lot of folks. But they went from like a double A plus to a double A1, so it's still a very good rating. However, they did a downgrade because a lot of these insurance companies that came out with long-term care insurance back in the early mid-'80s, no one was using it. They were just writing policies, people were paying premiums. Well, as folks get older, they typically tap these policies for their benefits.
Right.
And that's what's typically happening now is a lot of folks are asking John Hancock to start paying, live up to their promises as they've been paying their premiums so many years and keeping their promises. So that's just the FYI. You might get a couple calls on that in your office.
Yeah, and of course this goes back to this whole concept of I had people before say, well, I don't really need to do any fancy estate planning or any fancy footwork because I've got this long-term care insurance that I've purchased. And it almost kind of puts in the back of my head to say to them, all right, you still need to hedge that somehow. You still need to have a plan because, I mean, theoretically, the benefits might not be what they want them to be, or worse, the premiums could continue to go up and they might find themselves priced out of the market at some point. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times, when you say the benefits might not have kept up with I guess you would call it the medical inflation, where nursing homes or assisted living facilities charge more than what the policy will pay for. And then one needs to dig back into their pocket. Mm-hmm. So the whole instance of I'm hedging spending my nest egg, that's why I bought long-term care insurance. You need to always review each and every year. I'm sure you tell folks every 3 or 4 years to review their will or their trust documents or powers of attorney and so forth. I always have reviews from my clients looking at their long-term care, their life insurance. Is it enough? Is it keeping up with the pace of inflation or the medical inflation, as I call it? And then especially with long-term care insurance, they might want to retire to a different state. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, the price here in Pennsylvania might be higher or lower than it is in Florida, Arizona, or where else they want to go. Because we're a very transitional society, and they might want to move closer to the grandkids or closer to or further away from the kids. Who knows? But in any event, you need to review that and see where it is and see how your health situation is, because maybe long-term care insurance isn't the right answer. Or maybe you have some health issues that you can't get the insurance, or maybe you just need tweaking of an existing policy. But yeah, you really should take it under review. So if you have one, you should seek an advisor like myself or someone else that you trust to take a look at that policy.
And all these insurance companies, I guess, are always in danger of being downgraded if they're not they're paying out too much and not collecting enough. But there's not that many players in the long-term care insurance, are there?
You're absolutely right. There really is not. Hancock's a big one. Mass Mutual, MetLife. I do a lot of business with Genworth. I like their product. I like their pricing. And then there's a whole bunch of smaller players who are there, and they're very respectable. However, there used to be several more. I mean, you would go to a senior expo or some kind of conference or what have you, and the tables would just be, aisles and aisles of long-term care insurance providers. Well, they've either got priced out of the market, or they couldn't insure the risk anymore. It just got too big for them, or the company didn't, live up to their guarantees, and someone had to step in and help them out. Mm-hmm. But you're right. there used to be a ton more, and now you probably have about 5 or 6 big players, and after that, it's maybe not a name you would recognize.
I got to take a call.
I want to ask you. Yeah, I was going to say I have a question for you.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Shoot first, and I'll take the caller after that.
With the looming taxes, with estate taxes going back to 2001, meaning, Betty and Sue can pass $1 million apiece. What are you doing from your firm? Like, or people coming in to seeing you and saying, "What do I do?" I thought, last year I can give $3.5 million away each, $7 million. But now, if I factor in the value of my home, my investments, oh my God, we're over $1 million now. We're approaching $2 million. What are you telling those folks from an estate planning standpoint?
And what we're telling them is we don't know. Obviously, with the election having just happened, it may change what Congress is going to do, but they have to get over the veto if there is one. So how they're going to settle that estate tax, I don't know. The short answer is, for the moment, I think you have to tell people you have to plan on living with a pretty salty estate tax at this point, and probably need to take a few more aggressive measures. Although, if you were going to do that, you might want to use, maybe a life insurance vehicle or some of the other things that would be easier to dump than, say, an irrevocable trust.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the funny thing is, and you would think that you would have some phone calls, but the reality is I find that a lot of people are even unaware of the changes. And what I mean by that is it just hasn't struck them that it's going to apply to them, because a lot of people just don't seem to know what their net worth actually is, because they don't include things like the equity in their home when they're thinking about how much they're worth.
Or the fact that they own a life insurance policy in their name.
Right. Or the farmland. I get these folks, and they own 300 acres of farmland. In their mind, it's 300 acres of farmland, and in somebody else's mind, it's $2.5 million of development.
Or there's Marcellus Shale under there.
Right. Well, you know what? And that's going to be interesting, because there's a bunch of people whose land values have increased. Now, of course, once you sell those royalties off, then you get the income stream, and that might decrease the value a little bit. But it is interesting, isn't it?
It is, especially when, Rendell was trying to say that what's in the dirt, the minerals in the dirt, that's the state's. That's not yours, Carl, even though you own the property. The mineral rights, that's the state's. Right.
That's a whole new...
I always thought that was an interesting legal issue.
Well, I always like to tell Bob Durgan, the land really is the state's. They just let you use it. And they're just kind that way, which is your deed and fee simple. But yeah, traditionally we have the ability to deed mineral rights, and you own to the center of the earth and then up into the sky as far as you can see. Here, let me take this.
Air rights, yeah.
Let me take this call here. Don, you're on with Carl and Mark.
Yeah, Carl, I have a question about back in April. My father passed away, and he had a will, and he willed everything to a gentleman. Actually, it was a grandson. Well, now the grandson, I guess it would be my stepmother also. She's still alive, and this grandson, he is the executor and I guess power of attorney over her. And I don't know if you read in the paper, but last week he was arrested and he's out on bail now. And he was the gentleman that set these dates up on the internet with these girls, and then he had sex with them. And he sent pictures out, so he's out on bail on a $125,000 bond. And I guess my question is he still legally, does he still have the right to be executor or power of attorney, or do you have to wait till he's actually he goes to trial and is convicted?
The short answer is it may be such an impediment that he could be removed. The short answer is you're innocent until proven guilty, but I think a judge could certainly consider the fact that you're charged as a distraction. Also be interested to know who did the bonding. Did he borrow any money from the estate or from the relatives? Or
it gets kind of hairy. I don't know how the heck. I know this will has been probated somewhat, but yet the stepmother, she's still alive. Now I don't know. I mean, to a certain extent, I believe she has dementia.
Okay.
But the whole thing's been kind of hairy, quite frankly. I think when this will was made up, it was made up about 2 weeks before my father passed away. and now this is happening, and the whole thing just seems sort of fishy. And it's a substantial amount of money that that's involved here. I'd say the will is probated for somewhere around $900,000, but I know it's probably everything floating around is probably closer to $2 million.
Well, Don, and I don't know who the estate's attorney is, but what I would recommend is, you're a potential heir in this?
Well, I would be, even though I was eliminated. But I'm the son, and he said I solely left my children out of this will, which I'm not quite sure. Now at this point, when I keep seeing these things happening, I'm thinking, this really isn't right.
And you may be able to challenge the will. My thought on the matter is you probably want to come see me, and actually there's a guy in my office, Eric David, who would be perfect for this. One of the things we could do is do a little analysis and see if there's any way to challenge the will, because if we can invalidate the will, we can make you back into being an heir, and it wouldn't be the first time that I've been involved in a case where we've discovered that somebody's used what we call a close and confidential relationship to overpower somebody and get them to write a will that really isn't their knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily done. It's instead what the evil step-cousin or whoever it is has forced this person into doing.
Well, I don't think
Carl,
it may have not been that way, because my dad was up, we weren't on a talking basis for a couple of years, and it was for something that was, some item that was he accused, now there's a man who's worth a couple $1 million, he accused my daughter of stealing $3,000 from him, which was totally untrue, but I just told him, when he did this, to go pound sand. So he took that with him to the grave. But yet, when I see these things happening, and fact is, I saw this boy's picture in the paper. I think, he's 37 years old. I didn't even know him. And when I saw the picture, I wasn't quite sure. But I found out he told the neighbors were at this one at the house that he's innocent. These kids just made this up. Well, I got to say, if they just made it up, and he was sending pictures over Craigslist or wherever he was sending them, to me, and his bail was $125,000, and I think they called it unsecured, and I don't know if that means you have to have the whole $125,000.
If it's unsecured, he just signs a signature. He doesn't have to post any money.
Oh, he doesn't.
If it's truly unsecured.
Okay, well, now, originally I did talk to another attorney, but I didn't, this was probably about 4 months ago, and he started saying, I don't really know if you have much of a chance, and you could spend thousands of dollars and might not come up with anything. But now that this happened, I'm just thinking, probably go through this whole thing again and just see. I mean, if it's going to cost me tons of money, it just doesn't make sense to do it. But
right.
It would be kind of nice to just say, hey, you got a chance, you don't, or this is what the odds are, or whatever. Because and the other thing about it, this kid is he's not too smart.
Don, the other thing that
he's smart enough to get all the money.
The other thing that we've done, the other thing we've done in cases like yours is, after we do an evaluation, we sometimes are willing to take them on what I call a contingency fee basis.
Okay.
So if we challenge the will and you end up getting any money, then we take a percentage of it. Now, I can be frank with you, when we take them on a contingency fee, obviously there's a potential windfall for us.
Yeah.
And I always have clients that go, "Whoa, I wish I'd have done it hourly." And
well,
like,
let me ask you this: what would a contingency be? 40%, 60%?
Yeah, usually around 40%.
Well, if it's $2 million and 40%, I'm still gonna come up with about $1 million.
Yeah, I understand. We all make out. And then the other thing is, looking at the strength of your claim. Let me give you an example. Let's assume we're looking at your claim and we evaluate and we say this is a 5% chance of winning here.
Then you just forget it, I would imagine.
Well, but sometimes we can go to the estate and we say we're going to litigate this out, and they go, it's a 95% chance of winning, but what would you guys take $75,000 to go away, or would you take $115,000 to leave us alone?
And I think this guy's name, the attorney for this gentleman's name is Shook. And I can't remember his first name is. I'm not
that's
sure.
Okay. We don't. That's not important for our callers, for our listeners' purposes.
Okay, I would like to sit down and just go over this whole thing one more time with somebody that I feel. I've heard you on the radio, and I think, well, this guy seems like somebody I would like to, because it sounds to me like you're not afraid to go into the courtroom or.
Yeah, Don, I'm not afraid to litigate. Let me put it to you that way, and I'll say it quite clearly. But I also can tell you, I sometimes can't help people, but I can tell you that sometimes lawyers just aren't aggressive or creative enough in their thinking all the time. And I'm not going to toot my own horn. I'm just going to say, you know, there's just some people out there who make their living by shuffling the paperwork around, and they don't want to be on the cutting edge of anything, or they don't want to break new ground. I'm also a firm believer that if you can get your foot in the door, sometimes you might have to get the whole enchilada, but you can at least get the other side to the position where they buy out.
Yeah,
and you got to have a legitimate legal angle to do that. You can't just bully them into it.
Right.
But that's where creative thinking comes in.
And when I think of the whole situation, it's just not quite fair, the way the way things have been in our lives. I mean, I got along with my dad pretty well most of our lives, and he's kind of a bullheaded type guy, and I don't take too much crap either. That's why I thought, hey, you just take your money and run with it. But then when I would have been happy if he gave it all to charity.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Here's a kid that I don't even know if he has a high school education, but he's. I don't
That's how to use a computer.
He's stupid, But how do he's dumb? But he was dumb enough to bewield all the money. But it's just sad, the way the whole thing's transpired. Like I have a brother. He's in the Masonic home, and he has dementia. And I had a sister that passed away. Between the three of us, we had 8 grandchildren. Mm-hmm. My father couldn't have told you the names of all of those 8 grandchildren. And those kids, in those 8, there's some of them are still in school. A couple of them have college degrees, but yet. But he ends up giving everything to this boy, it doesn't make sense. And then the kid did what he just did. I just couldn't believe it. But so I thought, man, I just want to do some checking and find out. But like I said,
I tell you what too, Don. Having a visit with Carl and his attorney there, they might find out that there was a will, and then 2 weeks ago, a prior one that maybe had you and all the siblings in it, and then all of a sudden 2 weeks ago, this one shows up.
Well, no, that's
I would
not.
think
No,
that's the due diligence
this will was
Carl's
just made out. Yeah, and when my father died in April, and the will was made out about I think 2 weeks or so before he passed away. So, and apparently it was done in the nursing home. Now, what we did find out that my stepmother, she was in another home called Manor Care over in Carlisle, and my wife went to visit her, and she said something to my wife. Asked her, she said, "By any chance did anybody have you sign any papers lately?" She says, "Oh yeah, the lawyer came up and I signed some papers off." Well, she probably didn't have a clue what she's signing off.
Yeah, and that's
most definitely.
And I didn't see, I'm not sure what it is, but if she's still alive, she still has to be part of that estate. And that's the part I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, it's something we can take a look at, Don. I'd be happy to do it. Go to weekendappointment.com to get my contact information, okay?
Okay, weekendappointment.com.
Yep.
And what's that do? Does that tell me when I can get in there? Or
that's the website that goes with the show, but it's got my phone number, email, all that good stuff all over it.
All right, well, I'll do that.
All right, Don.
Hey, well, thanks a lot. I appreciate your call.
Good luck, Don.
Appreciate your conversation. All right, bye-bye.
And we got one more caller here, Mark. Dale, you're on with Carl and Mark. What's going on?
Hi, Carl. Got a question for you.
Yeah.
You had a caller earlier that talked about domestic violence, domestic abuse.
Yes.
I got a question. I mean, I know the courts rule on physical abuse because that can be actually seen in that. Are there any rulings for emotional or mental abuse, and what's the court's hold on them?
Well, we don't. We for physical abuse, we have criminal charges and PFAs and things like that. For mental and emotional abuse, we don't really have any adequate remedy at law. However, in a divorce setting, we certainly can consider that.
That's what I'm looking at.
In making the distribution and in the relative fault in the divorce. So, yes, it's absolutely something that the courts can consider in a divorce case.
Okay.
Is that helpful, Dale?
Yeah, I wasn't sure how that fell in or not.
It's only one of many factors, unfortunately. So, obviously, if there's abuse or mental or emotional abuse, it can be grounds alone for a divorce. But it's only one factor in considering the distribution of property, but it certainly comes into play.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
So, Mark, I guess it sounds like the guy has quite a little estate issue going there.
I tell you what, that's talk about Law and Order ripped from the headlines. That's right out of the paper.
Well,
That's
here's the problem. The problem is if the guy had testamentary capacity, he has testamentary capacity, and people sometimes angrily write people out of their will, and then they don't plan on dying right away, and then they do. So who knows what the will's actually going to look like? Who knows what the will before it looked like? And who knows how it actually all went down? I'd be most interested if we found out that the guy who's the beneficiary of the will was the one who had it drafted and then personally brought it to the nursing home and had it signed. Then you get pretty interested, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been there. We've all had either colleagues or family members or something, and all of a sudden somebody shows up and they just can't seem to get rid of them. They're there all the time, or they're talking, and of course, most of us remember those folks, who've been with us the shortest period of time, because you see them all the time. You see them every day. They come to visit you in the nursing home all the time and every Sunday and everything. And, of course, they drop hints like, hey, were your kids here? No, they didn't come, and I'm sure they embellished that. But I just hope there's nothing sinister at work here. I mean, that just gives the law and the estate planning and so forth just a bad name. And it gives, you look at the attorney who was involved in this too, doesn't necessarily cast him in a good light either.
Yeah, and all I can tell you is this: is the attorneys who write wills and do it right make sure that the person has testamentary capacity and they actually go out and meet with the person, etc. I have seen some shoddy work, however, where somebody gets bamboozled because some family member or somebody says, hey, why don't you write the will? Here's what she wants to do. Well, you can't write a will for somebody as a lawyer and really not have met with them to assess their testamentary capacity. That's why I go to the hospital, etc. But I have seen people go get the will or even tell grandma the lawyer wrote it, but they actually copied it off the Office Max paper stationery, the kit you buy, or they downloaded it off of LegalZoom or one of those places where there's nobody there to do what the attorney does, which is really make sure you're doing it right and make sure you want to do it and make sure you know what you're doing. So
That's right.
We may not even have been a professional estate planner or attorney even involved in this. Of course, those are the things we like to look for, because if we find that, then it makes it much easier to challenge testamentary capacity. Next question I want to do is look at the guy's medical records to see where his mind was in terms of fitness at that point in his life.
Yeah, and then of course, if the spouse, I don't want to say disinherited, but I guess did something like that, so the entire estate goes to this one guy, you also want to try and see if you can't see her medical status as well, her medical records as well, which I know is difficulty with HIPAA, but you want to see what her, why is she in the nursing home? What's her medical state as well?
Right. Well,
yeah.
I guess it goes back to people should not write these wills willy-nilly. They should get them done ahead of time. They should think the estate plan out. And I think rash things like writing your kids out of the will, while it's certainly your entitlement, it's not always something I would recommend.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Good podcast.
Yeah, and hopefully. Now, if anybody wants to get a hold of you or get your services, how are they going to do that?
Well, I'll give you the local phone number here is 717-509-4521. You can reach me via email at Mark, M-A-R-K, at Mirus Financial Partners, and that's M as a Mark, I-R-U-S, financialpartners.com. Available for appointments in the evening, if so scheduled ahead of time. And quite frankly, if you're already a client or if the week is not convenient, I will schedule Saturday appointments, preferably Saturday morning, on an as-needed basis.
Well, Mark, just to let you know, I'm also, I think I got myself a little Lancaster address over on Chestnut Street temporarily while I figure out where we're going to go in the long run. So I'm going to be announcing that next week. I'll let you know more about it when I'm down there. And
excellent.
Hopefully we'll start meeting with some clients down there. And I know a lot of people didn't want to drive to Carlisle just to get a free will, so I'm hoping a few of the Lancaster County listeners will jump on board. I guess I better wrap.
I'll tell you what.
Oh, go ahead.
Where your office is going to be, that used to be, right there in the corner, that used to be a cigar shop called Tobacco Road once upon a time.
Ah, well, there you
So
go.
it's funny. There you go. I think there's something about that that's where you ended up.
I like the odor of that place. All right, folks, this weekend appointment. I'm attorney Carl Rominger. You've been getting your legal questions answered. If you want to get your legal questions answered throughout the week, you need an appointment with you, go to weekendappointment.com. You can send me an email. You can get my phone number. You can post your question there. We're happy to help you throughout the mid-state, and I have a team of experienced lawyers to serve you. Again, Carl Rominger with Weekend Appointment. We've been joined by Mark Virginis.
Right.
I'll get that
That's
right.
good.
And Mark is our financial guru, and you can also find him on weekendappointment.com under the Friends of the Show. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Carl.